Alright, today I'm going to show you guys by far what is by far the hardest, weirdest problem that you can have in a car, and it's an electrical problem. And yeah, let's get right to it. And it's actually called voltage drop within the wire itself. So it's a wire that looks like it works, but it doesn't work. It's not very easy to diagnose, or should I say, it is easy to diagnose in some cases. In cases of classic cars, if it's a modern car, you're I feel bad for you. But if it's a classic car, it's not hard to diagnose, but it's very, very bewildering, if you will, if you've never heard of it. And so I'd like to just do my own video. There's another video that I have in my playlist of a guy that he really explains anything and everything, any possible problems that you could have. But I'd like to do my own version here and show more clearly what it looks like. So, without further ado, as you can see here from this battery terminal, I've got this alligator clamp with this wire, and as you can see, the wire looks like it's brand new, and it's going to the lead on the multimeter. So it goes through the multimeter and then to the positive post on the battery. So when I turn the multimeter on, as you can see there, I'm getting my 11.63 volts. So you tell yourself, well, everything's clean, everything's nice and good, there's no rust. The wire looks like it's brand new, so it's working. And then I simply connect the multimeter, the wire, directly to the battery. And you shouldn't do this, really. And as you can see, nothing happens. Normally, if I connect anything conductive, electrically conductive, across the terminals of the battery, it will get fried instantly. But as you can see, nothing's happening. Now we're starting to get some smoke. There we go. So that's exactly what happens sometimes. The wire itself starts to, let me just get that alligator clip. There, that was a perfect demonstration. So what happens is, but as you can see, it was there for quite a long time without actually conducting any electricity. This is a bit of an extreme case, but I'll show you another more practical illustration. But what happens is the wire itself starts to use up electricity. So instead of you getting, normally you don't want the wire to use up any electricity. So let's say you have a wire going to a light bulb. You want all that electricity going to the light bulb. But if the wire itself is using up electricity, then not enough electricity will reach the light bulb. I'm not going to go into too much detail in the explanation because it's already been done. There's no point in me doing another explanation video. There's already one out there. But that's just the basic principle. So the reason it's so hard to diagnose is because, as you can see, there was 12 volts. The multimeter will show 12 volts. Sometimes you can also measure resistance across the wire, and it will show 0 resistance. But the wire is actually not working. Or sometimes, in most cases, actually, it's not working completely. It's not completely not working. So what happens is it'll just let, let's say, half of the voltage through. So in my case here, at the starter, we have 12 volts coming from the battery, but actually only maybe 10 volts is reaching the starter. The wire is using up 2 volts of of electrical current. And so that's why it's kind of it actually is very, very confusing if you don't know, if you've never heard of this problem, because once again you put your multimeter across the terminals and it says 12 volts. Alright, so if you want to see the complete explanation, just check out my playlist. Right, so in my case, the car is having difficulty cranking, and I have two good batteries, and still it's very difficult, very slow cranking. So I suspect it's this cable here, the wire going from the battery terminal to the starter. And one symptom is that the wire gets really hot, or it gets really hot on the terminal. And the wire overall itself, it also gets hot. Not extremely hot, but on the terminal it does get extremely hot to the point where you can't touch it. So without further ado, we're going to repeat that test. So I'm going to be doing this by myself, so it's a little bit trickier. So I've got one alligator clip coming from the starter terminal, the main starter terminal, which is in this case positive. So that's that one there. Sure, that's not touching anything. And if I connect it to the negative terminal, sure enough, we have, as you can see there, we have 12.14 volts. So that tells me that voltage is reaching the starter. And that is the first mistake. So instead of connecting the other terminal from the multimeter to the negative terminal, I'm going to connect it to the positive terminal. And that's going to allow me to calculate voltage difference, or more scientifically called the potential difference, if any, across the wire. So let me just get one of those alligator clips that I just fried, so that it holds the multimeter terminal there for me. And with everything off, we should have no voltage difference, basically because both terminals are at the positive wire. So however, so as you can see, we have about a 1 to 1.5 voltage difference while the car is cranking, which means that's the voltage that's being subtracted. So from the starting of the wire to the end of the wire, we have a 1 volt difference, which means we're starting at 12 volts and it's ending at only 11 volts. This number will probably increase as the wire gets hotter. The more I crank the engine rather. So as you can see, that tells me that that tells me that not enough voltage is reaching the starter, hence the reason why it's turning very sluggishly. Terminals in this case aren't hot yet, but the wire is starting to get hot. I want to crank it a bit more, see what happens as it heats up. So at this point, the terminal on the battery is hot enough that I can't touch it. As you can see, there's no corrosion on the terminals. Everything is as it's supposed to be. But it's very, very hot. And overall, the wire itself, I can feel it getting hot as well. So my solution will be to replace that wire with a much thicker wire, and that should resolve the problem. So I think that's it. Hope that helps somebody.